What it do, what it do. Once again, it's your boy, Cypher the MC, the Muhammad Ali of MCs. Back with you once again. Welcome to the Enter the Cypher Podcast. It is January, well, at the time that this is being recorded, it is January 14th. So this is actually going to be a kind of a Martin Luther King type-esque podcast. Dedication of the great civil rights leader. But just recording it a little bit early. There's my theme, my background music. Every great superhero needs some theme music.
Yeah, that's true.
I saw that in the movie once. I'm just saying. So before we get started, welcome to the podcast. If you're new, definitely you're welcome. You're in for a treat. If you've been here before, you know what we need to do. We have to go through our disclaimers, get those out of the way. And it goes as follows. I'm not a relationship expert. I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist by any means. I don't have a master's or a doctorate from Harvard. I am just a regular. Say it with me now if you've been here before. A regular Joe Schmo. Just a regular guy giving you a different perspective through a different lens on life, on issues that affect us as we continue to be on this journey. And I say we because I'm on this journey with you to be the best versions of ourselves. So as the creator intended. So if you're listening to this on YouTube, definitely, if you're watching it as well, drop a mic on that like button for your boy, hit the subscribe, notification bell, all that good stuff. All right. So I originally had a different topic in mind for today's episode, but I was talking to Mom Dukes and everything, and she works for the government, so she has Monday off. And I don't know, somehow the conversation got on Martin Luther King's birthday and things of that nature. Since my brother's birthday is actually today, shout out to my bro. Shout out to my brother. Love you, man. And I was like, you know what? I did not think of doing an episode, a Martin Luther King episode. And then all of a sudden, this floodgate just opened, and I was thinking of so many things. So I was like, okay, what could I talk about? What could I give a different perspective on? And it kind of dawned on me that we talk about Martin Luther King Jr. and his impact and his influence. And then I realized that we have very little in the way. I'm not going to say very little. We don't have the as impactful civil rights leaders today that we had 50, 60 years ago. You may agree, you may disagree, but I don't believe that it's such an impact that I put it to you like this. If this generation of kids grow up to be adults or last generation's adults can name 5 civil rights leaders of today without it being Jesse Jackson or Al Sharpton, if they can name 5 civil rights leaders today, then I can be proven wrong in that statement that I just made. If you ask any teenager now, any young adult now, name a civil rights leader, they're going to name someone that has already died. More than likely, they're not going to name anyone prominent today. They're not going to name anyone who is steadfast in the trenches of civil rights or racial equality. Now, they're going to name someone who has already died. And that's a sad thing. If you really think about it, that's a sad thing. Most of us possibly grew up going to school. We heard about Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth, Crispus Attucks, those individuals, Nat Turner, those individuals. But as we got older, we started to hear less and less about civil rights leaders, only during certain events that occurred where someone's human right to exist was encroached upon, or their life was taken. That's when the Al Sharptons come out, or the Jesse Jacksons come out. But outside of those two individuals, can you name 5 other civil rights leaders prominent today? Most of them may be working behind the scenes, but they're known. There's record of them. They do exist. Unlike leprechauns and unicorns, I think they exist, but that's neither here nor there. But if you were to ask any of the young people in this generation, or even in last generation, name a civil rights leader, they're going to name someone that has already died and passed away. Why? Because that's what they were taught. That's what's in their history books. That's what they see on TV. All they know is, well, I get Monday off on his birthday. Okay, well, what do you know about him? He was a civil rights leader. Okay. What did he do? He wrote a speech. Okay. I mean, what about his life? What about his life do you know? What about his existence do you know? What about his influence do you know? And that's where the conversation would end and be like, well, because that information is simply not taught. And the question is why? Why is it not taught? Why is it not engaged upon? Like those type of conversations. Is it that this generation or the previous generation, that they just can't handle those types of talks? Hey, okay, let's talk about, civil rights. Because let's face it, everyone is going to go behind, everyone is going to go to a social media platform and tweet out, oh, I hate this, or I don't like cops or police brutality and whatever. And they think they've done their part. Well, I voiced my opinion. I think civil rights leaders did a little bit more than just voice their opinion. They actually took a stand. They actually, spoke out in public about things that were affecting them at the time. So, yeah, most of them were putting their lives in danger because during this time, 50, 60 years ago, Black Americans were seen as second class, even third class citizens. We weren't really viewed as individuals or, as people. We were seen more as a threat versus individuals who could actually give their opinion about something. Even I myself had to do a little digging. I'm like, outside of Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton, I really don't know. And those guys are part of the old guard, as I like to say. Those guys that actually, either marched with Martin Luther King, or spoke to him, or had conversations with him, because I believe they're old enough. I believe they're old enough to have at least spoken with him and marched with him and things of that nature. I could be wrong on that note, but they've been around a very long time. And that's the thing. When it comes to not only civil rights for people of color, but just for human rights, basically, there has to be a continuous flow, a continuous cycle of quote-unquote new blood. So that way the next generation can pick up where the older generation left off without there being a gap, without there being a lack of a voice. Because right now, if you were to just kind of just try to look for them, look for civil rights leaders, you will find them. They're very prominent there. They may not have the national eye on them consistently, but they are out there. And I was able to find, of course, I'm going to, I like to do my research. And, I went to, I found this article online from Diversity Inc. And basically, it tells us 10 modern Black civil rights leaders to follow today. And this is just for informational purposes and things of that nature. But it kind of gives you a little bit of insight as far as who some of these individuals are. And I just wrote down a few names here. One is James Rucker. James Rucker, he's the co-founder of Color of Change, which is the largest modern civil rights organization in the U.S. It focuses on racial justice through social media and web-based engagement and organizing. So it's not something, where people get together in a room and talk about, we're going to meet here and we're going to do this and do that. It's basically leveraging the power of social media to bring awareness to, racial injustices, things of that nature. Kimberly Crenshaw, she's a professor of law at UCLA and Columbia Law School. So she's on both the East and the West Coast. She's a scholar and activist focusing on areas of civil rights, constitutional law, race, and gender equality. One of her focuses is on unique issues Black women face. Then you have, Reverend Dr. William Barber, Alicia Garza, Patrice Cullors. Guys, hey, I know you've been watching the video. You're loving it, right? Thumbs up, likes, subscribe. You'll get back to it when I get you back to the video. Anyway, I wanted to quickly tell you about the company that I've partnered with called Credit Rent Boost. Pretty much allows you to basically have your rent that you pay monthly. Doesn't matter if it's an apartment, house, townhome, castle with a moat, if you have one, if you're rich like that, whatever. But guess what? You can actually have that reported to the credit bureaus as positive credit history that you're paying. So why not get credit for what you're already paying, right? Go to creditrentboost.com, and not only can you get credit moving forward for what you're paying for rent, little known secret here, for the past 2 years, you can get credit. So you can get credit for rent that you paid last year, the year before that, from 2020, right? So why not give them a chance? You can use my promotion code OVM24522, or better yet, I'll leave the link in the description box below. Might be the best thing you ever do. Now, get back to the video. Smash the like. I love that guy's voice. A commercial just popped up on me. So that was Reverend Dr. William Barber, Alicia Garza, Patrice Cullors, Opel Tomidi, Tarana Burke of the Me Too movement before Hollywood got a hold of it. Laverne Cox, Michelle Alexander, another law professor at Ohio State University. And Melanie Campbell is also mentioned in this article. So you have different people from different backgrounds that, and 3 of those individuals are actually co-founders of the Black Lives Matter movement as well. But you have these individuals who will come from different backgrounds, who all share a pretty much common thread between them. They're looking at the state of our country, and they're seeing, of course, the deficiencies that our country has. Let's face it, America is not a perfect country by any means. It is still a relatively young country compared to Germany or England or Russia, who has gone through several name changes before we know it as the country today. I look at the United States like this. The United States, if we were to correlate it to the age of a child, because it's still relatively young, it's only 200 and some odd years old. Compared to everyone else, it would be pretty much kind of that preteen years, like there, the country, the child that's easily swayed by the bigger kids, easy to take sides with this side until that side gets them mad. Then they're not friends with that side anymore, and then they're going to try to be friends with the side that they were against initially, and blase. To me, that's how the U.S. is. It has the potential for greatness. It has the potential to be better than it is right now. It has the potential to view its citizens as equals versus race, ethnicity, things of that nature. I'm sure that there are other countries that do a census every so often, but I really don't know if, and I mean, that'll be definitely a good research to do, if other countries, if they take into account race as part of their census. Like, do they just want to know how many people are in your household? Like, what's the median income? Things of that nature and what have you. But I really don't know any other country now. Again, I haven't done my research on this here, that race is actually a part of the census. Like, what is your race? Which one of these ethnicities do you claim? Like, I mean, I realize that the U.S. is a little bit more a combination, a potluck of colors, so to speak. We have different, nationalities and people from different countries that reside here. So maybe that takes into account, but why can't we just all be viewed as human beings? We all should all be viewed as having the same rights and not it be based off of our genders or the color of our skin, so to speak. And this is what Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in essence was fighting for. And he fought for these things non-violently, which is ironic because he died in a violent way. And most people would say, oh man, see, non-violence against violence doesn't work. Non-violence does not, you can't bring a knife to a gunfight. And that's true. You can't bring a knife to a gunfight unless you know how to really wield that knife. Only the best. And it's not to say that Dr. King was not the best. It's just that at the time that he was actively fighting for the civil rights of African Americans in this country, having both black and white supporters, there were those in power that saw him as a threat. As nonviolent as he was, they saw him as a threat. Why? Because his words were power. I truly believe that if we are to be a functional society, it has to start in-house. I don't believe that racism is something that is taught outside of closed doors. That's just my personal opinion. I believe it's something that kids grow up with and they become adults that hold those same ideals. It's not something that they go to school with and, go to school and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to, dislike this group of people simply because of their skin. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. No, it's something that they're taught, something that they've seen from, their parents or family members or individuals like that. The same can be said for those that can, teach their children love and understanding and acceptance and to be non-judgmental when it comes to individuals. The same can be happen. Same thing can happen. So why isn't it happening more frequently? Why can't we get to that point to whereas we're pushing the needle back against hate and racism and bigotry and things of that nature. The very things that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was fighting for and fighting against. He was fighting against that with love and understanding. Now, one may say, well, of course, he was a reverend. You pretty much have some sort of theological aspect there that, you're not going to see color. You're going to see this individual as a human being. True. And not many people are going to look at it from from that perspective, to say the least. Oh my gosh, I see this guy as even though he's a white guy, I just can't see him just as a guy. I have to say that he's a white guy or he's a black guy or, but why not? Why can't you see them as a human being first? I myself have had the privilege of meeting, guys who were, white, Spanish, black, different races, different nationalities, different backgrounds, but I don't refer to them as, yeah, my white guy friend Bob. Oh yeah, my Spanish friend Julio. I don't do that. I just call them what they are to me. My relationship to me, their relationship to me is more important than the color of their skin, basically. And I feel that once we get to that point, once we get to that understanding that, you know what, we're total strangers. I just thought of something. We're friends that just don't know each other's names yet. We're basically strangers, but what we are is we are potential friends that don't know each other's names yet. And it's very easy. Introduce yourself to someone today. Introduce yourself to someone that you don't know, that's of a different race, a different nationality. You'll find out that you have a lot more in common with them than you realize, but simply because you have a different skin tone, there's a lot of stereotypes and myths and things that come along with that on both sides, on all sides rather. And there's a lot that goes on around us that we have to be aware of, whether it's social media, movies, TV shows, that for the most part perpetuate a certain stereotype of this group, of that group, of this group, of that group. And we have to find a way to kind of get past those stereotypes and still teach the next generation, so they can teach the next generation that you do not want to judge someone by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. In the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., as hard as it is for many of us to do, these were his words. So we have to ask ourselves, are we carrying his words? Are we carrying the torch? Are we carrying those words with us, that movement towards a better us, a better country, a better world? It's not going to be overnight. It hasn't been overnight. But we have to start somewhere. We have to start somewhere, and where better to start than in our own households? So I encourage each and one of you, start today. Start today. Have a conversation. Hey, everything starts with a conversation. So have that conversation today, and I'll have that link in the description box below. And I appreciate you joining me this week here on the Into the Cypher Podcast. You know who it is. It's your boy, Cypher the MC, the Muhammad Ali of MCs. Wishing you all a safe Monday. Dr. King, you are an influence. Great man. Appreciate you. And as always, before you love anyone else, you must first love yourself. And I am out this thing. Cypher.
I will not lose.
Into the cypher with your light.